necessarily a bad thing, but obviously I feel like something with Beishong is he's a lot more fluid. He'll see opportunities elsewhere on the map, and as you said, maybe not having the best performance in this split, and there is some times where it does backfire. So it's sort of that consistent top lane threat compared to Beishong, who if he finds an opportunity in the rest of the map, could actually swing the matchup into his advantage.
Yeah, we could look at that jungle pool a little bit closer as well, as we're about to go into ban pick, because the jungle pool is going to intersect a little bit. You talk about limitedness of Aki heading towards that top lane. That's a fun little interaction, folks. Let's remember that Curse, now known as Breathe, used to be on this roster, so going up against his old squad, his old team, of course, with a lot of changes throughout the individual roster. Fun to see, as knew it was a replacement as OMG head into pick ban. Orcs, what do you want to see here? What are you looking for as your first couple of picks, as Ezreal most likely locked in?
So I'm actually not a massive fan of the Ezreal for WE, simply because I feel like you can even see it from OMG's bans. The Thresh and the Kalista, they kind of want to mitigate that pressure on the bot side of the map. So I think by picking the Ezreal, you kind of limit that early strength, although it is a good pocket pick for Elk. I just think maybe not ideal in this matchup, but I think mid lane matchup, vitally important. Jungle matchup, ever important in this meta. And I think it's really sort of developing the compositions from there. Xin Zhao left open and available, one of the, S+ tier junglers on the current patch. So I think that should be one that OMG looks to prioritize here.
I mean, that would be game number 6 if it gets locked in here for Aki. 80% win rate, folks, so that's 4 out of 5. 6 KDA, but he goes a different direction. First Diana game for Aki. Something, again, in that S tier, which means you trade away the other over to WE.
Yeah, and there's a potential window to go for an enchanter mid with the Xin Zhao. Something we're seeing quite commonly, especially the Lulu. Although I feel like here, it's not something we've seen yet from Shanks. If he does bring it out, though, it could potentially cause issues for some of Cream's champions, stopping that skirmishing. But instead, he goes back to that Silas. We saw it 2 games in that series against BLG, something he's very comfortable on, and a strong skirmisher in that mid lane.
Balances the power, doesn't it? You've got AD jungle, AP mid as well. A lot of CC, a lot of follow-up chain damage too. So I like this from WE, a strong 2v2 that can get things moving and start the skirmishes. While for OMG, Orcs, we have a lot of all-in already. Set another big power pick here on this patch in the LPL. And already I see strong dive potential that OMG are just going to go forward on.
Yeah, I love the set Diana combo. It's so good. I think one of the key things with Diana is you really need CC to flourish, and set just provides that in absolute spades. So you have that strong backline dive combo, and also it is an AD threat. So you have that AP jungler, you want some AD, you can move around, potentially put a mid lane, and you can see WE are starting to hammer away at those AD mid laners. Kiana gone. I think Viego could follow up as a good option, something that we could definitely see Cream pop off on, so wouldn't be surprised to see that banned here.
I just love the bans going, like, the targeted bans towards Cream. You already mentioned the Kiana coming through. Remember, this guy's like a Viego player. Silas already taken away, but things like the Kassadin as well we talked about, whether or not it rolls into the composition. So WE, they get rid of the rel, they've stopped target banning Cream. Now we're going to ask the question whether he wants to get a priority pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think Viego makes complete sense here. He's been really solid on it. He's actually been really proactive in the early game when sometimes we'd see Viego is a little bit slower. You went to Silas, so it's a comfortable matchup that you can sustain through.
Yeah.
Makes complete sense. And obviously picking the mid laner there, you already know you're likely going up against the Silas 99 times out of 100. And with OMG, they now get support counter pick as well. It's already Kai'Sa into Ezreal. Kai'Sa obviously able to apply that AD pressure a little bit more than the Ezreal is. If you get a good support matchup as well, I feel like OMG pretty comfortable in this draft.
Something like the Leona, right, we've seen is just top tier most of the time. We'll talk about that counter pick in a second. I like you bring up the comfortability as well. On the side of WE, I'm seeing a couple of picks here that surprise me with comfort as well. We see the Gwen up in the top lane. Preen's only played it once, but we know he's such a great mechanical top laner. And for missing down in the bottom lane, Thresh a favorite, Alistar, the Leona as well, but hovering over this Tarm, wants a bit of safety, but I much prefer this Orcs. Deny away the Leona that piles so well on OMG's comp.
Yeah, I completely agree. Leona and Kai'Sa would be pretty threatening. Does obviously mean that if the ideal sort of support combo I feel with Kai'Sa could well be the Nautilus, but Leona is a good matchup into that, so it means OMG aren't really in a great position necessarily counter. Rakan makes complete sense. Obviously offers another element to that engage potential, but you're not really going to have as much lane pressure in this matchup, so it means Elk should have some, space to breathe. I do feel, though, one thing I'm a little bit concerned about is that Gwen pick. As we were talking about before, Aki often likes to lead towards that top lane, and something we've seen is that in the West, Gwen is really high priority. In the East, it's actually dropped a bit, and it's because players are really punishing it. They will look to gank it heavily, they'll dive it repeatedly, they can really put it behind. And when I'm looking at this set down a top lane combo, I could see OMG looking for that play pattern, and Breathe could be in trouble if that happens. So definitely a strong pick, but there are some concerns there.
Especially when you talk about the gap close here, right? Diana's just such a big pick in the meta. The ability to get between that Hallowing Mist and gap close on top of Breathe is huge, especially with the set to add on top of that. So I like you talked about peppering the top lane, OMG going back to the condition that we know for Aki and for Aki and New. And as Breathe goes up against his old squad, his old organization, we'll call it, because that's the truth of it. I wonder if he's going to be able to survive it out, because Orcs here, I see a lot of good scaling on the side of WE. The Ezreal, the Gwen as well, even if it is a team fighting tool in the LPL. Even the Sylas, right? We got towards those 3-4 items. And these champions have a lot of burst damage, but a lot of reliable team fighting as well.
Yeah, and I think the thing that really favors them in this situation is the extended team fights, especially later in the game, as you said, on those later items, when you have things like the Frozen Heart coming off the Ezreal, when there's more survivability for these champions, it's going to be harder to get those instant burst moments from the side of OMG. And when that happens, you know, Sylas and those longer fights are going to be able to sustain significantly. It's the same with Gwen. Ezreal gets a lot of value, and I feel like if WE are going to come out ahead strong in these fights, they need that instant kill, start getting the resets from Cream and find that momentum. And I think if you want to have that possibility, you need to have a strong early game to set up that advantage.
I'll be looking for it on the jungle side, see if they can punish the Gwen top you talked about and get things rolling here for OMG. WE versus OMG, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Summoner's Rift. 4-2 apiece in the standings right now. They are neck and neck. And this starts off the LPL weekend extravaganza here in week 4. Every single matchup looks completely banging. Even tomorrow, looking across at the board and you're like, V5 versus BLG. Okay, old squads though. Top eSports, EDG, Suning RNG. Today, LNG, RA, FPX, IG. It doesn't end. So this is going to be a good weekend, Orcs, and I'm glad to open it up with you as our first cast together. We called ourselves Historks. I don't know if we're going to stick with that name, but maybe we'll
see how it goes. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So, welcome to the Rift. Let's walk through a little bit of the comps you talked about. You said OMG need to start the game off rolling. Where do you want to see Aki start pathing? And is it just a matter of hitting down the top lane, as you said in draft, or do you need to create more options?
So I think level 6 is normally where they see the Diana come really online. And as much as it's not like completely nearly game, that's why I want to start seeing the momentum. Okay. Whereas we can see that earlier impact from Beisheng on the Xin Zhao, and he will want to start, you know, potentially contesting things, looking to fight for Scuttle, looking for ganks earlier on. So that gives a little bit of a reprieve towards Breathe. And actually, I've clocked something. You know, this is going to sound like I'm just making it up. I was having a shower this morning and I was thinking about, if he does pick the Gwen, I actually think Exhaust is a really big brain take here, because realistically, you don't need the flash. It's not going to necessarily save you if you're trapped in a tower, but Exhaust mitigating that damage could be enough to keep you alive. And, you know, I want to see Aki going towards the top lane, but I feel like 3-6 without that ultimate with Breathe having Exhaust might actually be a little bit trickier to find that advantage.
I just love that your shower thought is so intelligent here. Seeing it here on Breathe in game number 1 as well. Instead of something like the Ignite, you also mentioned Flash. Here in the LPL, we've never really seen Flash on the Gwen, apart from a couple of matchups. Ghost as well, one of those ones we've been darting around, but we'll watch it in action because, again, top lane still feels like that lane to watch as junglers just clear away up towards that wave. Aki now on Raptors, bit of a lead here in tempo, but Beisheng's on a solo camp, so he shouldn't be too far behind. As both of these top laners just fighting it out for now, you can see the damage already coming through from Breathe, and to mitigate the Haymaker if New's outside the circle.
Yeah, and just looping back in the junglers, you actually see that Beisheng has skipped his Krogs. Really like this decision on Xin Zhao. Your clear is slower. You want to be able to match the Diana moving from the bot side of the map to the top side. And I also like that they're mirrored here for the side of WE, because it means Beisheng can obviously take the Scuttle. There's very little that can be done to contest this from the side of OMG. And on top of that, if Aki goes for any plays in the top side, he can be matched on that. Heavy trade bot lane coming out though.
Yeah, really nice trade onto missing. Ignite was used by Cole, but that forces them back in the lane. While Beisheng trying to utilize onto Cream, he's just used himself the Spectral Maw. Now gets engaged on, has to flash away. And Beisheng's timing window to watch for the spell was on point.
Yeah, really nice opportunity. Doesn't really lose that much off it because he's just pathing towards the bot side of the map, giving a bit of help to Shanks in this matchup as well, and putting Cream on the back foot. Now, that bot lane priority we just saw does mean Aki's going to be able to pick up that scuttle. I think when you're playing something like Dana, it's really important to have priority in some lanes. So obviously you can be able to pick up one of those scuttles, losing both. Pretty dire in the early game, but again, haven't seen too much action. This is really where Jin Zhao does have the edge. He scales pretty well overall, but level 6, that's what I'm looking for. That's where I want to see Aki come online and start to make that impact. But as I'm saying,
Abel
bot lane.
in the bottom lane, flash. Elk goes into lack of vision. Abel, though, and Cold get the last auto. First blood over to OMG, but Beisheng's here. Abel needs to die, and Beisheng secures it while looking for Cold. Aki now re-engaging, but Audacious Charge. What's the cooldown? It's back up. Right on top of Aki. No Q here for the Talon Strike to get the knockup. And a 1-for-1. Favorable, but both ADs drop in the dirt.
Yeah, but I do feel like this is the slight edge towards OMG just from the wave state. If Aki can hold this, it's actually going to be massive, but Beisheng is going to stop that one out. Although the wave was pretty big. It's actually cleared a little bit, just taxing a bit away from Abel there, but Abel actually able to pick up the cannon. So pretty fine overall, and just a lot of aggression out from these two. I really like Cold's response just to instantly knock out the Leona and consistently focusing the damage down on Elk. He actually gets aggro from the minions there, which helps them take him down. But both junglers, they were mirroring each other on the paths, both able to show up there and just offer the resistance, even though Aki obviously not really needed.
We have to look at what the kills actually meant there in that trade as well. It was 1 over to Beisheng, 1 over to Cold. Going to be more impact here for Beisheng, but let's just remember that Elk, Missing, both used 3 out of 4 of the total bottom lane summoners. Missing still has his flash as he looks to roam mid, but he's spotted out by a ward. But I think the point and the takeaway is that Beisheng with a little bit of momentum here in the jungle. And the bottom lane now vulnerable here for OMG. Abel and Cold have been going really aggressive down here, Orcs, that another misstep as well. Easier to punish if Beisheng goes through that full clear and returns bot again.
Yeah, and I think that's what you should be looking for. It's a little bit harder just because obviously the Rakan is so mobile, but you saw the heavy commit there. It's an opportunity to punish. And I can understand why Abel and Cold are doing it. You're going up against Nezreal. This is the window to put him behind, to punish him. And I mean, we talked about this top lane camp.
Nice. Flash face breaker in. They wanted to hit top lane. You're exactly right, but is it too far? Gwen and Xin Zhao, the early damage, it's huge.
Yeah, and the exhaust coming out there, mitigating the damage, so Bree doesn't even get that low. And Beisheng, we said, early mirroring favored him. He has matched Aki across the board. And here we see Aki going for that top lane gank. He likes to particularly prioritize, and he's answered. And now Beisheng 2-0 so far in this early game, looking pretty strong on this Xin Zhao.
And plus you give the lane the push, and there was already a bit of a CS advantage for Breathe. This is WE's win condition and always has been a point of stability, a point of carrying. Breathe is the best player in this roster right now, and I'll say that so easily, and one of the best top laners, if not the best top laner in the LPL right now too. So Breathe level 6, uses the needlework, now has himself the Leeching Leer as well, Orcs, versus a double longsword. Sorry, a double Dorrance, longsword, Ruby Crystal. A lot to talk about here for WE's top lane. And as you said, momentum onto Beisheng even more so. Looking towards these early dragons, the early Rift Heralds here, Orcs. That will be an advantage for Beisheng if he contests.
Yeah, I think the thing is now you're bringing so much more to the skirmishes than Dana. Dana really relied on that ultimate, whereas just the skirmishing power of Xin Zhao pretty stellar throughout. I like though that OMG used this window to take the dragon when they have that priority, but realistically, I don't think WE are too concerned about that. I think what we'll likely see them do is lean up towards the Herald and look to prioritize that one, potentially set up one of the lanes for a lot of momentum. And if they do put that into Breathe, he could really find an advantage in the matchup. The thing with this matchup is that if you get ahead on the Gwen, you're just able to out-duel the set. He doesn't have enough damage to finish you off, and you can just start to heal up when you finish that Riftmaker.
And we talked about the comp of OMG as well, you know, needing to find momentum in the early game. Not that it's so cut and dry with scaling, right? But we did talk about the all-in potential, the burst potential as well, finding members at the start of the fight if it gets there. As I have to pause. Beisheng and Shanks walking through bottom lane though. Ezreal and Leona winning out. Abel getting bursted down as well, and It doesn't matter. Leona, Ezreal hits 6 while the top side, Aki's in trouble. He's going to get snip, flashes back over the wall to survive. A bit of a cheeky play. The question mark goes up, but dude,
but
WE
Shanks?
over the board, and Shanks now involved as well. Doesn't matter, no moonfall for you, as 4-1 sits on the scoreboard.
WE just winning across the board. The bot 2v2, great ult usage for missing. That's the thing, is that Rakan very mobile, which makes him hard to kill. But if you layer that CC, makes him vulnerable. Oh,
Shanks bit of trouble, flashed on by Cream. And another couple of turret shots means disaster. Beisheng not going to tag him, looking for the audacious charge. So he'll get out, but it's action all over the board.
Yeah, and actions consistently favoring WE. Obviously, Cream trying to take out Shanks there, but they just end up trading flashes and ultimates in that situation. And at this point, with WE feeling comfortable to go for this Herald, but they'll probably want to make it a bit of a slow contest. You can see Beisheng actually backing away. They see Cold. They know that Missing's still on the way, and Shanks is just reset, so not rushing that one down, wanted to wait until they have the numbers advantage.
I think it's important to note that Abel's come up as well, shown himself on a ward. For now, vision control will go back over to the side of OMG as Elk spotted on the growing wave in the bottom lane. And so Aki starts it up. Remember that Shanks without the TP had to walk the lane, as you mentioning. So OMG looking for this objective with great timing from Cream. Means that it's a double objective start. It means that WE's gold lead still matters, but OMG at least will be able to claw some of it back.
Yeah, so I like this move. You bring the extra numbers, so despite the fact you're behind in terms of gold, you bring the extra advantage so you can secure that Herald. The downside is Elk has been bot lane by himself. He stacked up a big wave. Oh, engage coming in.
Two-man solar flare, Zenith Blade, Beisheng's in as well. Abel flashing over the wall to get out, but the true shot barrage. The snipe down. WE in the escape part, though, as Aki's trying to come on in. Has the moonfall, wants the gap closed, but Shanks is all in. Stolen moonfall, burst down Cream, and he's in the pit with no returns. Snip time with Breathe, also TP's on in. The moonfall for real this time, great from OMG, but look at the damage from Breathe. Gwen is just such a good champion, as Aki knows it at best. He's about to die as well. He wants to give it to Elk, bit of PM, but he helps out to give the triple.
Massive win there for WE. I love the decision making. They put Elk alone in the bot lane. They stack up this. Oh,
it's not over. Abel has ult. Abel has ult. Killer Instinct. Lens there just in case, but you lose the second skin proc. Abel didn't know where Breathe was, so he plays it safe, but Elk is still in so much trouble. Arcade Shift. He has a real flash. Use it to get over the wall. Abel, remember, still the Killer Instinct available. Just has to hit that W onto the target. Elk's now launched down. Cream over the wall. Under turret. Abel finally ult through, but Cream's taking aggro. And it comes so close as Beisheng is now reset. Maybe they should have left it here, Orcs. Abel on the run. Solar Flare. Instant cleanse away. W to lock him down cold. Sacrificing his own life. But it's a two-man W. Abel still dies. And it's an absolute disaster for OMG.
Yeah, Beisheng comes back off the reset with the full Gore Drinker, really strong, and they just end up overcommitting to the Ezreal. Takes so long to actually go down under tower, and OMG think this is an opportunity for them to answer back a little bit after that massive win from WE, but they get absolutely crushed. Not even just in the fight itself, but in the follow-up. And your only saving grace right now is that you have that Herald, but you're so far behind. And as I was saying, the big thing with OMG's composition is that when you join a fight, you have these big, high-impact ultimates. You want to use them to get a kill, get a reset for Cream, and continue the fight. With this discrepancy, you're just not going to have the damage, and you can see WE just feels so comfortable to do whatever they want right now.
It feels like WE have the burst now, right? Because of that discrepancy you're talking about. Like, Beisheng is going to be a burst champion at this point already with Gore Drinker. Riftmaker in the top lane for Breathe, who has a 20 CS advantage. Even in the bottom lane after the play, and Elk being targeted in the 2v2 in the fights, he's got a Divine Sunderer and the tier stacking, so he's happy. And when we talked about these elongated fights, I mean, they're not going to be long on the side of WE at this point because the damage is going to be enough and OMG are going to get blasted before they can show up and burst them down themselves.
And that's the thing, it might even get to the point where even if OMG are hitting all those big ultimates, if you don't kill them, it's just going to turn around so much. I mean, you have all these champions diving onto, the likes of Elk or Beisheng or Breathe, and they have a lot of survivability. They have a lot of mobility. They're going to be hard targets to finish off. And if you fail that, as you said, the damage is going to come around and just smack you so hard. Right now, it's just over 4,000 gold deficit, 4,500 about for WE at only 30 minutes. So this is absolutely massive. You see that Herald throwing down top, not really going to amount to too much in this situation, just a couple of plates, but now WE in a comfortable spot where they can apply the pressure.
Heartbreaker chains come through and Cream in a bit of trouble. Beisheng looking to target him down, make it a dive. He has the audacious charge. He goes for it under turret. Moonfall to separate, but Cream needs one more hit. Under the turret, taking the aggro. Shanks as well. Now it's going wrong for WE. Aki, Cream get a bit of HP back thanks to Triumph, thanks to the Sovereign's domination. And the chains hit again. Cream's going to get yet another reset. And OMG, that's what they needed to get back in the game.
Yeah, just an overstep from WE there. No reason to dive in that scenario. And actually, Cream getting an 800 gold shutdown on this Viego. Definitely a much needed cash injection. And you can't be disrespectful like that when you offering these bounties, especially if that was a bigger team fight. Offering those resets to Cream is a way for OMG to find success in the game. And now, with those shutdowns, he's actually pretty significantly up in gold in the mid matchup.
And let's be honest, Orcs, in this first game, we've had shenanigans. It's been exciting, but this is true shenanigans of the LPL. Bottom lane dive, mid lane dive, both going horribly wrong. As the game evens out with this first turret going down on the bottom side, we do move back to that 3,000 gold lead for WE, but you just pointed it out. Cream's cash injection of that massive 800 gold shutdown means so much for OMG. So now we're going to find out what happens around these next couple of objectives. What happens because of this play that went so wrong for WE.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see, you can understand Beisheng thinking he has the damage, but really, I've got to criticize Shanks for this one. Going in at such a low amount of health, and as you saw from the vision, couldn't even see Cream to finish him off, so a nice play there. But yeah, I mean, I think OMG, a critical thing is them getting that first dragon. I feel like any time when you're behind, getting an early dragon means there's not as much pressure, because if we're looking towards that soul as something you have to contest, it's not going to be till about 28 minutes in the game that you're forced to team fight to deny that away from the other side. And it gives you more space to scale up a little bit, get a couple of items on your carries, make that gold lead not as relevant. But I think realistically for OMG, the ideal thing you can do in this scenario is find a numbers advantage. You have really strong engage, so pick a target somewhere on the map, overload that lane with 3 members when there's say 1 there, 2 there, and then just instantly blow them up before WE really gets a chance to respond. I think that's kind of the best condition here. And if you see a scenario where WE are bringing multiple members, kind of look towards this top side where the Herald is, I think it's best just to move away. Don't opt to contest this. Look for somewhere else on the map you can pressure, or just be willing to concede it, because I think a fight right now still probably going to go very much in WE's favor.
Well, OMG not going to take your advice for now as Herald goes down. Beisheng picks it up. New on the flank here, wants to showstopper him down. Facebreaker for the 2-man. He gets it eventually. Ulti all in the wombo you talked about. OMG get the perfect setup. 5 versus 2, and both drop down.
Yeah, it feels like WE weren't ready for that contest. They didn't actually have all members grouped together. Beisheng and Breathe alone, and that's that engage potential. You blow up 2 members quickly. It was 5 against 2 in the actual fight there, and that's enough an advantage to take out the most fed members of WE. And now OMG gets some time. New's going to take out this top tower and equalize in terms of those. It's really closed the goal gap as well. We're talking about 3,000, 4,000 gold lead at about 30 minutes. It's now only 500 between these two, so massive moves coming out from OMG to close that gap.
I mean, second death going over to Beisheng as well, right? The first one to dive this time. You said WE just weren't prepared for OMG to all in with 5 members on this one.
Yeah, I mean, the critical thing is here, Shanks isn't there. You can see him on the minimap, still walking up towards there. WE know they're not 5-man strong, so they're not willing to take that fight, but they weren't able to get out of the situation. They engaged Jules too much in forcing WE to get caught up in those.
I think we need to talk a little bit about what happens for the game here now that WE have lost that 5,000 gold advantage, and what we've just seen on our screen from OMG, which was beautiful. The setup you're talking, Orcs, the all-in, getting those picks. And around this next objective as well, OMG have caught back up in some of the items. We have an item and a half on pretty much everyone here, which has elevated quite recently in the coming minutes. And Cream especially, I think someone to watch here with a level lead, with now a CS lead, almost the Blade of the Ruined King. It looks like they won't be opting in for this fight, but it's still fine. You mentioned the early dragon before. Means the game does go longer now that WE only have 2 and OMG have their starting dragon.
Yeah, and I love this decision from OMG. They're picking and choosing their fights, which I think is really important, because again, even though the gold lead is closed, the win conditions for fights are different. If OMG gets that instant ult combo, blows a couple of members, gets the cream reset, great. If they don't, WE will outvalue them. And this could be a window they're looking to set up potentially here. WE definitely cautious. You have to respect this engage tools. And I'm watching you looking for a flank here.
That's right. Has the showstopper, has himself the flash as well. Straight on in on top of missing Aki. The moonfall, quickness as well, but WE have kited back. Cole's already dead, and now elongated fight at the ready. A good showstopper though from you, the face breaker as well. Abel, does he have the damage output? The answer is no. And WE disengage, only to take down two of OMG with them.
Yeah, you saw Aki fly in, but the layering wasn't quite there. The CC wasn't able to keep everyone locked in place. And you can see OMG instantly recognize, okay, fight isn't won off the engage. We have to try and disengage here. They end up losing 2 members for the one of WE, but not too much more than that. And we can see in the replay, so great CC coming out to lock up the set, because this engage looks really threatening, but it kind of gets disrupted, and particularly Beishong with the ult with the Cosmic Guard knocking away the Diana, and then the set does eventually come in, but it's very staggered. It's not layered together effectively, and the result is a lot of members of WE survive, and instantly OMG recognize this is not a one fight. We need to back off.
Just such a great reaction from Beishong. Despite the 2 plays that we saw that weren't in his favor, I mean, that response means that the rest of OMG aren't able to pile up as efficiently, and WE gets something back here. Gold still pretty neck and neck after the play, but remember, the Herald was put down. That's what started it. Turret still standing there for OMG, if only a hair's breadth, as True Shot Barrage tries to clear out the minion wave. Missing's holding it for now, and we just have to wait for the next objective.
This is the second time I've seen Missing do this in this game. Yep. They'll just hold this massive minion wave for someone to show up. That's the sort of support you love to have in your team, being honest.
That's the dream, absolutely. Elk now finally returns to mid lane. This turret's gone. Not long for the world, so breaking over all the outers here, bar the one in the top lane. WE making a fast approach to just clear open the map. Give Breathe a bit of priority with some deep vision up in this topside jungle, and make sure that Breathe can get that solo turret gold, because I want to point out we have a Nash's Tooth on Gwen, which all LEC fans, LCS fans will be like, yeah, this is normal. What are you saying? In LPL, we barely see this item because our Gwen's rushed to Zhonya's second, the Cosmic Drive as well. Cosmic Drive? I'm right, aren't I? Yeah. So Nash is rarely ever seen in the league as a split pushing approach.
Yeah, and in this matchup up against the set, it is going to favor you heavily in the 1v1, but in the team fights, I actually really would have liked the Zhonyas, simply because we talked about those big ult engages, the sort of impact they can have. Zhonya's a massive tool for surviving that. However, Breathe, if he's confident in his ability to survive these ones, then this will give him more damage over the course of a longer fight. Although obviously, Gwen is pretty broken at the moment. I don't think you actually need that much extra damage. But now, though, we see resets coming in, so the big thing with that mid tower being taken down is we'll see WE able to push their vision line up further. Right now, they're going to look to take their mid priority, and OMG, they take this brief window when the resets are coming in, try and get some vision down, but quickly, WE come in just to clear that out, try and deny as much vision around the Baron, and it forces OMG to have to push in and contest if they think any shenanigans are going down with the purple win.
Well, a couple of wards to be cleared out then from Beishong. Deep wards as well on top of that from Missing. So I like this 2-man approach, not going in to put in vision alone. It'll just be a response vision for vision until this drag starts spawning, which there's not really any vision control from either team, bar a couple of control wards from OMG heading down towards this next dragon. And it is an Infernal Soul. WE have 2 of them as well. They want to start building up for that soul point. And you can see that the side lanes are kind of crashing mid-even. Breathe moving down as well. I'm curious that OMG, how they approach this next Dragon Orcs is going to be a big question mark in my mind.
I feel like they're a little bit late already, though. With 40 seconds to go, don't have any vision in the area at all. And one of the ideal things with the composition is if you can find a flank window, it's great. But you don't have any deep boards potentially set up. You can see there's question mark pings actually coming out from WE. They're concerned about potential flank wards. There aren't any there, though. OMG are forced to try and take mid priority to move in. But this is just going to be a straight up contest. And again, look for the big team fight ultimates from OMG. Look at Aki. Look at New.
Piling in. Aki's doing it. Starting with the moonfall here. The quickness into the back line as well. They've done it, Orcs. Onto one. Missing will drop first. No Sonya's Hourglass to save him or at least use. But Shanks on the back line is absolutely massive. And Breathe is just not dying. The Gwen runs into the thick of it. Lives on. Now ready to snip down. And Cold's not going to be able to beat an AD carry. This is what happens when Breathe is able to run free.
And the thing is, they got that first initial kill, but it was onto Missing. Yes, you get the Leona, but Cream isn't exactly stealing a high-value target with his passive. And then the resulting fight, Breathe able to get so much value, that Nash's Tooth doing so much damage. And even though OMG actually had a numbers advantage after the initial engage, they still know the fight is lost. They still try and disengage, but they're unable to do so. And now WE just able to pick up the Baron.
And on top of that, Soul Point as well. Something else to force OMG into. You've explained these comps so well, Orcs. Again, I want to reiterate on points you came up through with the pick potential, with the all-in engage. OMG using it on Missing means a lot of cooldowns now risen, and WE just kite back so well.
And the thing is here is Elk, beautiful arcane shift there to get out the initial engage, so they can't pick off the AD carry. And you see Abel actually jumps in to try and take him down, but Shanks, beautiful job healing here with the Everfrost. And now that the Ezreal's alive, you can start to put that damage down. Breathe is just doing so much in the mix in these fights. And as a result, WE able to come out ahead in this one. I think that's the big thing, is we were talking a little bit before that about flanks. If OMG coming from a different direction, Elk isn't able to make that same play. You can't just arcane shift away because there's someone else on the other side. Because OMG were late to the play, because they came from one direction, we saw that WE could kite back and then look for that re-engage.
We have to remember as well that Elk, even though he burnt the heal there, has Flash if there is another potential engage by OMG, and now has the Frozen Heart, which is a standard 3-item build for Ezreal's. While we are quickly talking about builds in WE, punishing down with the Baron. Just remember that Zhonya's is nothing new here in the LPL. The Nautiluses, the Nautili, the Leonas, Zhonya's first item, engage, buy time. And buying time for WE is really the name of this game one against OMG.
Absolutely is. And you can see OMG trying to group up off of that contest, but in the mid lane, we have that Gwen. No one really capable of handling her, especially with the Baron at minions. Level 16 now and finishing that Cosmic Drive. Just monstrous right now. Yeah,
just move up to the top side. You picked out the Cosmic Drive. A lot of team fighting capability even added now. 50 CS lead for Breathe too. This is why we said, if Breathe has a stable laning phase, or if Breathe got ahead like he did in this first game, this is what he's able to do. Breathe is the best performing top laner in the LPL right now, hands down. If you want to bring up Nuguri, if you want to bring up Zoom, or I'm trying to think of who else, Flandre even up there. We could talk about 369, but he's not playing. There's no one right now that compares, and Breathe has really helped carry this game alongside Beisheng's early gank up towards the top side. And as the team groups up towards this said top side, you can see Shank through mid, adding pressure, Baron with 40 seconds, and it's punishing and peppering OMG's base.
Yeah, WE want to break the base here, especially the threat of the Gwen in the side lane without an inhibitor tower is massive, but OMG, they are fishing for the engage. They know what the win con is. They still want to try and find it, but, flash up for Elk, definitely making the engage a little bit difficult, so not wanting to commit unless they find that window.
WE just poking them down. I mean, Cream now has to look for another angle, but it's Mew who starts it off. His team not there. Quickness into the backline. The Moonfall is great, but the problem is, one by one, OMG drive into the fight. WE are just too far ahead.
Crushing victory coming out, and again, it's a little bit of desperation from OMG. They don't want to give up their base with the Baron pushing down on them, but they weren't able to find a good engage. Once again, it's on to Missing, but with the Zhonya's, no way even Missing is going down in this scenario. It's a 5-0, and WE with a really convincing win in this game one.
Yeah, some shaky moments, but they rounded it out. The fight's looking great. 27 minutes to take OMG in game one.
And I think really the early game sort of spurred this on. Beisheng really mirroring Aki well, and we saw him just matching him in the bot lane, matching him in the top lane, able to shut down that gank we like to see him go for in the top lane. And as a result, they fell pretty far behind. But even saying that, we saw a pretty big comeback. We saw OMG find those good team fights, but then they just weren't able to make lightning strike twice. They weren't able to repeat those engages when it came to the critical moments.
It's a shame because it was such a fun comp to watch, right? Comps like that always are in a region like ours that has so much skirmishing, so much early team fighting. 27 minutes looks like 37 in other regions. So it's a shame for OMG. I liked that they weren't scared to pull the trigger in a lot of these fights, but versus an Ezreal, you know, breathe on his Gwen as well. The ability to buy time always there. And when you're down in gold against a comp that really wanted to snowball, as the comp that wanted to snowball, it becomes really difficult from there. So props to WE. I have to say that, again, we go back to what has been successful. Shanks had another good game here. Bringing him in was not a mistake, obviously. Breathe once more a rock for this team. And, you know, Beisheng had a majority of a good game.
And that was my biggest concern was, okay, Breathe, often a big carry for the side of WE, and OMG like to focus resources top. They like to punish this top laner. The Gwen had the exhaust as well, so less dive pressure available, and as a result, thanks to Beisheng assisting as well, able to really flourish. And you can see from the damage, most in the game on that Gwen, and that's a pretty tall ask when there's things like the Ezreal in the game.
That's right. I mean, Elk came close, but Breathe, god damn, that's quite a lot. Love seeing the Nash's Tooth build as well. You pointed it out against the set. It did such great work, but New was never side laning against him, just catching waves, making sure Breathe was never in the wave the same time as him. Always getting scared as well from Beisheng and how he was mirroring Aki. It's a fun game to kind of dissect because for WE, you know, the comp is, you know, pretty standard, right? Shanks on the Silas again, Elk on his favorite, Missing on his favorite. Beisheng, if I just have a quick look over here, he's played only one game of Xin Zhao, but Xin Zhao, another S tier pick. It's not like we saw picks that were so different. It was just a comp comprised of S, A+ tier picks in the meta.
Yeah, and sort of looking towards that second game, my question is definitely going to be, you gave over the Xin Zhao. We saw what Beisheng can do with it, and I think it limited Aki's impact in the early game, having something like the Diana that spikes at 6. So I kind of want to see a different direction with that when we go into game 2, more early agency.
Yeah, I think Aki looking at that, because there was an opportunity to pick up the Xin Zhao, right? The guess that we had was that it was going to happen, but going for the Diana, they had something in mind. I'm curious how OMG change up their composition. See if that Xin Zhao comes in as a flourishing pick that they put into their priority wheel. Ox, we're going to have a break though, and when we return, see if OMG can handle WE another game to take us full distance, or if WE are just going to smack them once more to clean it up 2-0.